pain, betrayal, secrets. Episode 6 of Blood of My Blood was not just an episode, it was a test of endurance for both the characters and the audience. The childbirth scene, the torment Julia suffered, and the revelations about Mistress Porter all pushed this story into darker, more heartbreaking territory. But as heavy as this episode felt, the trailer for episode 7 promises that the storm is far from over. Loyalties will break, reputations will be shattered, and choices will define destinies. So let's break down episode 6 in detail and then uncover what the episode 7 trailer is really telling us. Episode 6 immediately set its tone with one of the most disturbing childbirth scenes in the series so far. Instead of support and comfort, Julia faced judgment, scorn, and humiliation. Imagine trying to bring a child into the world while surrounded by women who should have been helping, but instead, they hurled words like daggers, shaming her at her most vulnerable moment. It was raw, unsettling, and deeply painful to watch. Yet hidden in that torment was a revelation, a window into the mind of Mistress Porter, a woman who has carried her own scars from Fraser's brutality. Earlier, many of us assumed Porter was simply being cruel to Julia, too bitter and resentful to show compassion. But in episode 6, her backstory finally explained the cruelty. Porter was not just angry, she was reliving her own trauma. She had been forced into Fraser's grasp, her freedom stripped away, her body turned into a battlefield. For her, Simon represented violence, shame, and pain that never healed. So when she believed Julia had gone willingly to Simon, it triggered all of her resentment. Porter could not tolerate the idea of someone pretending to suffer the same horror she had truly endured. The flashbacks revealed Simon Fraser at his worst, violent, manipulative, and utterly merciless. These moments were not easy to watch, but they served a purpose. They showed us that Porter's hardness wasn't born out of cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was defense. It was survival. And when she realized Julia had not gone to Simon for pleasure but for the desperate sake of her child, Porter's icy heart began to crack. She recognized a mother's sacrifice in Julia, a mirror of her own past choices. That shift transformed the atmosphere of the birthing scene. From hostility to a reluctant understanding, Porter's change of heart gave Julia the support she needed, however late it came. But the damage had already been done. Julia's suffering lingered long after the baby was born. This scene wasn't just about childbirth, it was about the price women pay in silence, the unseen wounds carried from generation to generation. Fans watching this episode felt that pain deeply, and many questioned whether the series was pushing too far into brutality. But it's also undeniable that these choices are weaving a tapestry of human suffering that feels painfully real. And that child, the innocent at the center of all this chaos, becomes a mystery in himself. We know he is a boy, but his future is shadowed in uncertainty. His name, his fate, even whether he will grow into someone we recognize from the wider Outlander universe, all remain unanswered questions. Was Julia right to endure everything for his sake? Will he survive in a world already filled with betrayal and shifting alliances? These are questions episode 6 raised, and episode 7 might begin to answer. But episode 6 wasn't only about Julia. It was also about Henry's unraveling mind. His delusions blurred the line between past and present, reality and hallucination. His visions of war memorials, the feeling of being trapped in battles long over, left us questioning whether he could survive his own mind. Was it PTSD? Was it trauma manifesting as endless illusions? Or was there something more, something that might still tie him to the mystical fabric of time travel itself? One thing is certain, Henry's fragile state is building toward a breaking point. And that breaking point seems destined to collide with Julia's newfound determination as a mother. Episode 6 ended with pain, confusion, and the faintest glimmer of hope. But as the episode 7 trailer shows us, the stakes are about to escalate into political, romantic, and even violent confrontations that will change everything for Brian, Ellen, and the clans caught between loyalty and ruin. If episode 6 was about pain and survival, the trailer for episode 7 shifts the focus toward passion, loyalty, and betrayal. At the heart of this storm lies Brian Fraser, Ellen Mackenzie, and the man who has silently loved her from the shadows, Murtagh. The trailer opens with a tender moment between Ellen and Brian, a rare glimpse of sweetness in a story so drenched in darkness. But as always in this world, joy is fleeting. What looks like love is quickly poisoned by suspicion, honor, and the unspoken rules of brotherhood. Dual, Ellen's protective brother, witnesses their closeness and reacts with fury, striking Brian in a moment that feels both personal and symbolic. For Dual, this isn't just about his sister's reputation, it's about the Mackenzie name, the family's alliances, and the fragile balance of power that keeps them afloat in a dangerous political landscape. Brian's presence threatens to unravel it all, and Ellen's feelings only add fuel to the fire. And then there's Murtagh. Loyal, steadfast, and deeply in love with Ellen, he has watched silently as fate drew her closer to Brian. Some fans argue that Brian never truly pursued Ellen, that their love was an inevitable spark destined to ignite. But destiny or not, Murtagh sees betrayal where Brian sees love. Between men bound by unspoken codes of honor, Brian's actions are a wound that cuts deeper than words. The trailer hints at confrontation, with Murtagh's eyes filled with both hurt and anger, a reminder that in Outlander lore, love and loyalty often collide with devastating consequences. But the drama doesn't end with personal heartbreak. Simon Fraser's venomous words against Ellen cast a shadow over her purity, damaging not only her reputation but also her family's standing. In this world, a woman's honor is tied directly to her family's power. For Ellen, the insult is not just personal, it's political. Her brothers demand answers, the Grants whisper behind closed doors, and every alliance trembles on the edge of collapse. The motto of Clan Mackenzie, Luck o' non Euro, I shine, not burn, becomes almost ironic in this context. Ellen tries to shine with dignity and resilience, but Simon's lies threaten to burn everything she stands for. Her struggle in episode 7 won't simply be about love, it will be about survival in a world where whispers carry more weight than truth. And Brian, caught in the middle, must face impossible choices. Does he step back to protect Ellen's honor, knowing it could break both their hearts? Or does he defy the expectations of clan and code, standing by the woman he loves at the cost of alliances and friendships? This conflict is bigger than romance, it's the kind of decision that reshapes entire families, that echoes down generations, and that fans will remember long after the episode ends. Meanwhile, the political backdrop grows more dangerous. Ellen's interest in the town meetings, driven by her father's influence and her own spirit, pulls her directly into the heart of the Jacobite cause. The trailer shows her in places she shouldn't be, trying to understand the stirrings of rebellion, only to be dragged away by Dual. But rebellion has a way of seeping into every life, whether you seek it or not. Ellen's curiosity and courage place her at the crossroads of history, and her choices will determine not only her fate but also the fate of the men who love her. Episode 7 promises that Ellen's story is no longer about stolen glances and whispered affection, it's about standing firm when everything she loves is under attack. And for Brian and Murtagh, it's about deciding what brotherhood and loyalty really mean when tested by the fire of love. If Julia's agony defined episode 6, Henry's unraveling sanity becomes the centerpiece of what lies ahead. For weeks, we've watched him wrestle with shadows of war, memories that bleed into the present, and visions that blur the boundary between reality and delusion. Episode 7's trailer pushes that unraveling even further, showing us a man at the edge of collapse. Henry's trauma is not just a background detail, it is a force shaping his every move, his every thought, and his very ability to survive in a world that is already hostile to him. His conversations with the brothel worker are haunting in their simplicity. To Henry, Julia and the child are dead. He is a man stripped of purpose, stripped of hope. In his mind, there is nothing left in this time for him. So, his thoughts naturally turn toward the stones, the gateway that once brought him here. Could they take him back? Could he escape the torment of the past and return to Claire, the life he once knew? These are questions that gnaw at his sanity, questions that make him reckless, desperate, and vulnerable. The trailer shows him preparing to approach the stones, each step heavy with the weight of delusion. But fate has other plans. Archbug and the Grant men stand in his way, blocking his escape. This moment is more than physical, it's symbolic. Henry is trying to run away, not just from the past but from himself. And the world refuses to let him. But what makes this storyline even more devastating is the cruel irony: Julia is alive. She has survived the horrors of episode 6, holding her child close, and yet Henry believes both are lost to him. The trailer even teases Julia in a beautiful dress, carrying her baby, a fragile image of hope and new beginnings. But Henry cannot see it. His despair blinds him, driving him closer to dangerous choices. The possibility of Julia discovering Henry's survival is one of the most tantalizing threads in the trailer. The brief glimpse of her reading a letter hints at secrets hidden in plain sight. If Julia finds one of Henry's letters sent through Simon Fraser, everything could change. For the first time since their separation, she might have proof that her husband still lives, still fights, still dreams of her. And if that happens, Julia's quiet resilience may transform into determination. She may stop waiting for fate to reunite them and instead take control of her own story. What makes this storyline so gripping is its duality. On one hand, we see Henry spiraling, convinced his family is gone and desperate to return to his own time. On the other, Julia clings to her child and begins to uncover the truth that Henry is still within reach. The tragedy is that both of them are fighting for each other, yet both believe they are alone. It's a cruel twist of fate that only intensifies the suspense. How much longer will destiny keep them apart? Thematically, this entire arc speaks to one of the most powerful ideas in the Outlander universe, that love and time are constantly at war. Henry's mind is fractured, Julia's strength is unshaken, and between them lies a world determined to keep them separated. Episode 7 seems poised to either widen that gap or give us the first glimpse of hope that they may find each other again. And yet, there is another layer to Henry's delusions that can't be ignored. The trailer reminds us of the earlier mystery, the war memorial scene with the years 1939 and 1945 carved into stone. At first, fans believed this hinted at time travel back to the 20th century. But episode 6 clarified it as an editing trick, a delusion in Henry's mind. Still, the question lingers: how much of Henry's visions are mere hallucinations, and how much could be a foreshadowing of things yet to come? Could the stones still call him in ways he cannot understand? Could his fractured mind be attuned to something beyond logic, something even more mystical? Episode 7, then, promises to be not just a continuation of Henry's suffering, but a crucible. Will he find strength to endure, or will his despair consume him? And will Julia's discovery of his letters become the lifeline that saves him, or arrive too late to stop his spiral? As much as Blood of My Blood thrives on personal tragedy and forbidden love, the series never lets us forget the political powder keg simmering beneath the surface. Episode 7's trailer makes this crystal clear. The Mackenzies, the Frasers, the Grants, all of them are caught in a web of alliances and betrayals that threaten to ignite into something far greater than family disputes. And at the center of it all is Ellen Mackenzie, a woman whose voice refuses to be silenced. Her presence at the town meeting is one of the most striking images in the trailer. She stands in a space dominated by men, daring to listen, daring to question, daring to involve herself in the political machinations that will soon spark the Jacobite rising of 1715. It's an act of courage, but also of danger. Ellen knows the risks, but she also knows that silence is not an option, not when her family's honor is under attack and not when her people's future hangs in the balance. Dual's furious arrival at the meeting underscores how perilous this is. To him, Ellen is stepping into forbidden territory, defying the boundaries imposed on her both as a woman and as a Mackenzie. Yet Ellen's determination cannot be so easily dismissed. Whether she attends for her own curiosity, her father's influence, or the hope of seeing Brian, one truth becomes clear: Ellen will no longer remain a silent bystander in a world where men decide everything. Her actions are planting the seeds of rebellion not just politically, but within her own family. And then there's Simon Fraser, ever the serpent lurking in the shadows. His calculated slander against Ellen's virtue is more than idle gossip, it's a weapon, meant to fracture alliances and strengthen his own position. In a society where a woman's honor defines her family's standing, Simon's words are a direct assault on the Mackenzies. The Grants, already skeptical, will seize upon this rumor to secure advantage. Every whispered doubt, every scandalous remark spreads like wildfire, threatening to consume Ellen's reputation and by extension, her clan's survival. The trailer suggests that this political tension will soon explode into outright violence. The gunfire, the chaos, the British soldiers storming into what should have been a secret gathering, these are not just background events. They are the opening salvos of a rebellion that will engulf Scotland, a rebellion in which our characters will be forced to choose sides. No longer will they be able to hide behind love stories and private tragedies. History itself is closing in on them, demanding loyalty, sacrifice, and blood. Brian finds himself torn in this chaos. His love for Ellen is undeniable, but his responsibilities as a Fraser weigh heavily. The sword he draws in the trailer is more than a weapon, it's a symbol of the conflict pulling him in every direction. He must defend his honor, his love, and perhaps even his clan, all while knowing that every action he takes could deepen the rift with Murtagh and place Ellen in greater danger. Julia's presence in this web is perhaps the most heartbreaking. As she clutches her child and reads what may be Henry's letter, she too is pulled into the wider struggle. Her survival is no longer just about protecting her baby, it's about navigating the treacherous politics of the Grants and the Frasers. If she can uncover the truth of Henry's survival, she may yet rewrite her fate. But if Simon's schemes and the clan wars consume her first, she and her child could become casualties of forces far larger than themselves. Episode 7, titled Lucco non Euro, I shine, not burn, is an ironic promise. For the Mackenzies, shining has never been harder. Every path seems to lead to betrayal, every alliance to ruin, every love to heartbreak. Yet the very motto suggests resilience, the ability to endure without being destroyed. Ellen embodies that spirit, as do Julia and even Henry in their own fractured ways. The storm is gathering. The Jacobite rebellion looms on the horizon. Love, honor, loyalty, and survival are about to collide in ways none of the characters can fully control. And as fans, we can only brace ourselves, knowing that Episode 7 will not only deepen the pain but also set the stage for choices that will echo through history itself. As heavy as Episode 6 was and as explosive as Episode 7 looks to be, there is one truth fans of Blood of My Blood know all too well: this story is not just about battles, politics, or even love. It's about legacy. Every action these characters take, every sacrifice they make, shapes not just their own lives but the generations that come after. And that is what makes this prequel so gripping, the constant reminder that these choices ripple into the Outlander timeline we already know. Take Julia and Henry, for example. Their story is layered with tragedy, but also with possibility. Fans are already theorizing about the child. Could he become someone we recognize, a thread linking directly to the Outlander characters we met seasons ago? Or is he destined to be a ghost of history, a life lost to obscurity, remembered only by the pain he caused his parents? The uncertainty is maddening, but it's also what makes every moment with Julia and her son feel so fragile, so important. Brian and Ellen's romance, too, is more than just a forbidden love story. We know from the wider Outlander universe that they are destined to be the parents of Jamie Fraser, one of the most beloved characters in television history. But knowing their destiny doesn't make the journey easier. If anything, it makes it harder. Every slap from Dual, every insult from Simon Fraser, every sword drawn in anger reminds us that the path to Jamie's birth is paved with blood, betrayal, and heartbreak. The trailer's focus on their love only raises the stakes. Will they endure the storm together, or will they be ripped apart before fate fulfills its promise? And then there's Murtagh, the quiet heart of the triangle. We know his loyalty, we know his devotion, and we know his pain. Episode 7 could very well mark the beginning of his lifelong struggle, watching the woman he loves choose another, while he vows to protect her anyway. It's a role that defines him, a role that fans of Outlander recognize instantly. And it all begins here, in these moments of betrayal and heartbreak. The political storm cannot be ignored either. The Jacobite cause is rising, and with it comes the certainty of war. The 1715 rebellion is more than a backdrop, it's a crucible that will test every character. Ellen's courage, Brian's honor, Henry's fragile mind, Julia's resilience, all will be thrown into the fire of history. And not everyone will survive unscathed. As we look ahead to Episode 7, one thing is clear: the series is no longer about quiet suffering or whispered love. It's about choices that shape destiny. It's about sacrifices that echo across centuries. And it's about the resilience of families, broken, mended, and reborn through pain. So the question we must ask ourselves is this: who will shine, and who will burn? The motto Lucco non euro promises endurance, but history tells us that endurance comes at a cost. Episode 7 is not just another chapter, it is the turning point where love, loyalty, and rebellion collide. And from this collision, the legend of the Frasers will rise.